Hello everyone, my name is Alex. This is my channel, so I get to talk about whatever I want, when I want. And today, we're going to be talking about haunting Adeline. So, if you haven't already heard, on July 15th, author H.D. Carlton confirmed that Haunting Adeline is going to be adapted into a film. She said that they do not have a cast or a studio yet, but she is working closely alongside Courtney Solomon as a producer and co-director.
Haunting Adeline's getting a movie. I thought really long and hard about how I'm going to break this news to you guys, and I decided to just be myself, so Haunting Adeline's getting a movie.
She said that she, quote, never thought that she would meet someone from Hollywood that is basically the male version of herself and just as insane as her, end quote. I'm not gonna play the entire TikTok announcement, mainly because it is 8 minutes long, but I will show you some of the more important parts that I'm gonna be touching on in this video. For instance, she says that she has full creative control over what goes and what stays within the movie, the reason it's not a TV show like she originally wanted, and that nothing in this movie will be watered down from the book.
I am so involved in this. I have a say in everything. I mean, the script, the casting, the music, the set design, anything and everything that goes into this film, I have a say in. There is not, at this current time, a streaming service or network that exists that will platform the TV show without sticking their fingers in it and trying to tame things down, cut things out, and chop it up into pieces on what they think it should look like and, what they want it to be. And that is just not something that Courtney and I are willing to do. Worry not, we will make it work. It will be the book coming to life. It's going to be everything that you love about Haunting Adeline, except in movie format.
In this clip, you can also see on-screen text saying, quote, important addition, we are not watering this movie down, and it will absolutely push boundaries as far as spice, while leaving enough to the imagination, but that doesn't mean sensitive scenes and topics won't be handled responsibly, tastefully, and artfully. We are approaching those aspects with great care. So, where am I going with this? The fact that this book is getting a movie is low-key kind of disturbing, and the fact that so many people are into it and praising it, even hoping for specific scenes, that astounds me. Bear with me, because I will end up coming full circle, but I have to give you guys some context first. If you don't already know what Haunting Adeline is, and you're just finding out now because of all this controversy, I envy you. However, in 2021, the book and its sequel in 2022 blew up on Book Talk. In fact, I think this book was probably the catalyst for a lot of the new dark romance side of Book Talk. In my opinion, it led to the blurred lines of what we would even consider the dark romance genre. I read this book a little bit after it came out because I saw the hype on TikTok and I was interested in dark romance at the time, and the book fucking sucks. Haunting Adeline follows a writer named Adeline, obviously, who moves into her late grandmother's mansion and discovers that she's being stalked by a man named Zaid, who also happens to run a vigilante organization that hunts human traffickers. The entire premise of the book is explicitly built around dubious consent, or dubcon, and non-con, which non-con, of course, is non-consenting, which is essentially rape. Dubcon, however, if you don't know, is essentially tricking someone into consenting, or thinking that they consented, essentially meaning entire scenes where Adeline is assaulted frames her body's physical response as some kind of proof that she secretly wanted it. And that's not just an interpretation either, it's a genuine topic in the book, and there are multiple occasions where both main characters talk about the lack of consent. For example, on page 170, during one of the punishment scenes, the narration says that Zaid, quote, finds my lack of consent so inconsequential, so worthless, end quote. And later, in one of Zaid's own POV chapters, he admits in his own internal monologue that he, quote, took something without consent, and reflects that he is fighting against that exact thing. And that's another thing. Zaid actively acknowledges the lack of consent multiple times throughout the story, but at the same time, he spends the entire book claiming to hate men who traffic and abuse women and children, while doing the same thing to the woman he supposedly loves. Speaking of the people that he is trying to stop, H.D. Carlton's Haunting Adeline has been accused of having a very anti-Semitic storyline, with some people even calling it QAnon fetish fan fiction. Carlton tells you it's there herself. I mean, before the story even starts, in her author's note, she writes that it deals with conspiracy theories surrounding the government with child sacrifice and cannibalism, and that she's heavy-handed on the subject. Now, she might not explicitly state what that conspiracy theory is or specify any groups or anything, but as you read the book, you'll learn about a secret cabal of powerful people ritually abusing children, drinking blood, and operating in the shadows of the government. This theme is structurally identical to real-world conspiracy movements like QAnon, and those conspiracy structures didn't just come from nowhere. It's blood libel, one of the oldest anti-Semitic conspiracy theories out there, and it's been used for generations to justify violence against Jewish communities. Because Carlton doesn't name any specific groups, she can say it isn't anti-Semitic. But that doesn't discount from the fact that her villain in the story, the conflict, is the exact thing that blood libel theorizes. Obviously, all of these things are terrible, but that's dark romance for you, right? No, dark romance or not, this book is just terrible. It reads like a fan fiction or some kind of self-insert. The female lead is literally a dark romance author, much like our lovely H.D. Carlton herself. In her own trigger warning page, author's note, whatever you want to call it, before the story starts, Carlton writes, quote, "I'm a woman in love with her own character, okay? I wanted to see his penis as much as possible." So I think the self-insert claims are pretty founded. Readers have described getting several chapters in and realizing the dialogue is unbearably cringe. The humor reads like, in one reader's words, a millennial trying too hard to be edgy, and that they were rolling their eyes or full-on cringing at how the characters talk to each other long before the plot even got dark. Adeline doesn't even meet Zaid until chapter 23, and up until then it's just some mysterious stalker. The entire build-up to the meeting of the love interest is just full of boring filler, way too much exposition, and the weirdest amount of swearing and metaphors. So you end up with this weird combination, a genuinely disturbing plot about trafficking and ritual abuse, wrapped in this writing that reads like self-indulgent wish fulfillment, delivered with stupid dialogue that I found kind of embarrassing to sit through. I could barely finish the book, but I'm not a quitter, so I did. And here's some examples that I pulled. On page 17, Adeline and her best friend Dea are talking about getting laid. Adeline's internal thoughts read, "I think I need a bigger mouth. More alcohol would fit in it. I don't say this out loud because I can bet my left ass cheek that her follow-up response would be to use it for a bigger dick instead." Huh? What? What? What does that mean? That's what I mean by weird-ass metaphors. And then on the next page, Dea takes Adeline's phone and texts a guy asking for sex. You know what her text was? "Come over tonight and lick my pussy. I've been craving your huge cock." That's not even all of it. The rest goes into how horny I am and touch myself every night to the thought of him. I growl and give her the filthiest look I can manage. My face would make a dumpster look like Mr. Clean's house. I can't even read that without a straight face. And you want to know what he said? "About time you came to your senses, baby. Be over at 8. What? And then it's all played off for laughs, and as if Dea didn't just essentially force Adeline into this sexual commitment that she didn't even want to be a part of. But then you get a simple flower page break, much like in a fan fiction you might read on Wattpad, and move straight to them about to have sex. And on page 26, we get a scene from Zaid's POV. He's torturing some guy. I would like to add that this guy that he's torturing specifically mentions a Mexican man, and this kind of theme is very prevalent throughout this book, where the quote-unquote Jewish people are in charge, but they're using the immigrants and minorities to kidnap and torture all of these innocent, young, white children, Christian children. So, yeah, just all around very racist book. And the man gives Zaid the information that he needs, and Zaid says, "Cool, thanks, man." Cool? Thanks, man? What? You just finished torturing this man and that's all you have to say? Cool, thanks, man. Millennial humor's unmatched. We would be here all day if I talked about every little bit of weird and cringe dialogue throughout the book, but there are specifically 2 scenes that I want to touch on, and those scenes, of course, are the gun scene and the House of Mirrors scene. Even if you've never read this book, I'm sure you probably heard about these scenes when you hear people talking about Haunting Adeline. Even the comments on H.D. Carlton's TikTok announcement are asking for these scenes to be in the movie. The House of Mirrors scene takes place around page 347 and is at a fair. Adeline goes into this mirror maze attraction alone while her friend Aya waits outside. And she gets lost inside, and because this is a stalker romance, Zaid is there waiting for her. And that's the setup. A woman, alone, disoriented, trapped in an enclosed maze she can't navigate her way out of, with a man who's been stalking her for the entire book so far, cornering her there. Her internal monologue during this is about how scared she is of him, but she's also trying to explain away her own fear because she knows he won't hurt her. Honestly, it feels kind of like Carlton's trying to justify what's going on. But this is also where we get the iconic run from Zaid, where he says, "If I catch you, I fuck you." Gross. All this, despite the fact that she does not want him. When he finally does catch up to her, she tells him that she refuses his advances. She actively tells him no multiple times, and she pulls away and tries to get him to stop, but he does not let her. He pulls out all the stops he can to explain her reluctance, saying that she's afraid she'll like it, and all the metaphors for love he can think of. He essentially starts love bombing her to convince her to stop resisting. And guess what? It doesn't even work. Her internal monologue is all about how she hates how much her body is submitting because she doesn't want to do this. She tries to convince him to at least wait because they're in a public place, but he's not having it. This entire scene is about her body betraying her, and that's basically consent for him. If someone tells you no, and you go out of your way to convince them to have sex anyways, and they eventually say yes because you've worn them down, that is assault. That is what is called dubious consent. Sure, she stopped fighting in the end, but only after he basically gave her no choice. The gun scene happens around 175, the same punishment scene where the narration flat out says Zaid finds Adeline's lack of consent so inconsequential. This is the scene where he uses a gun on her body as part of a punishment, all while calling her a good girl for compliance. Adeline is in genuine tears throughout this entire scene. Zaid has a gun. She's in tears telling him to stop, and he takes the fact that she is wet as consent. And afterwards, he just leaves. He doesn't talk to her for days, he assaults her, and then goes right back to stalking her from afar. People are begging for this scene to be in the movie. They are begging to watch this girl get sexually assaulted with a gun. A scene in which the language of punishment and worthlessness involving a weapon is framed as romantic simply because she has an orgasm. And I want you all to understand, if you haven't read this book, there's not a single scene where Adeline explicitly consents to Zaid. he essentially grooms her into having a CNC kink. And in the middle of the book, towards the end, she finally stops having the conflicting thoughts about both hating and loving it. 2 separate fan favorite, most requested for the movie scenes, and both of them follow the exact same structure. Trap her somewhere she can't easily escape, physically restrain her in some way, and treat her arousal as the thing that retroactively makes it fine. And it's that exact pattern that is being celebrated as the sexiest part of the whole series. It's in the TikTok comments, the fan edits, it's what people are begging Courtney Solomon and HD Carlton to put on the screen that is not watered down. That quote from earlier from Carlton, we are not watering this movie down and will absolutely push boundaries as far as the spice. Those 2 scenes, they have to be what she meant. They have to be. Because those are the most talked about scenes when it comes to that book. And I do want to be transparent here. I am not trying to kink shame. Okay? I am also not trying to hate on the dark romance genre. I personally love dark romance. There are so many great dark romance books that don't make it seem like consent is as easy as your vagina getting wet. However, I do think that this specific book takes things a little bit too far. If this was marketed as a horror, I don't think I would have that much of a problem, but the fact that it's marketed as a romance and that Zayd Meadows is considered a morally gray character is what makes it a lot worse. Zayd Meadows is not a morally gray character. He's a predator. He actively goes out of his way to torture and, in his words, ruin Adeline. Just because he happens to also go after child sex traffickers doesn't mean he's not a predator himself. In my opinion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with consuming this type of content in your own time. Adults are capable of knowing right from wrong and discerning reality from fiction. However, when you actively go out of your way to try and make it seem like a character like Zayd Meadows is an attractive and good person, you start to blur those lines. You can love Haunting Adeline and still understand the underlying problem with it. You can hate Haunting Adeline and still understand the problem. There is nothing with either. But becoming an apologist for a rapist is not okay. And here's that full circle moment I was talking about earlier. A film adaptation is happening. No cast, no studio, no release date. But we do know that Carlton has full creative control. That she promised, in her own words, that nothing will be watered down and that it will push the boundaries. That it will be the book come to life. Now you know what that actually means. It means the House of Mirrors chase, where a woman says no and gets worn down anyway. It means the gun scene, where a man points a weapon at a crying woman and calling her witness proof that she wanted it. Those are 2 scenes that fans are already asking for by name. And because Carlton has made a promise to bring this book to life, she has made an obligation for herself to essentially have these scenes in the movie. Otherwise, she will be facing backlash from her fans, who she told she wouldn't be watering it down. And here's my actual worry, the bigger one. Dark romance has spent years fighting to be taken seriously as a genre instead of just dismissed as trashy or juvenile. And I think it deserves that fight. There are dark romance authors out there that are doing genuinely thoughtful work with consent, power, trauma, work that knows the difference between depicting something monstrous and asking you to root for the monster. Haunting Adeline is about to become the most visible, most mainstream, and most talked about piece of dark romance media that's ever existed. Not because it's the best representation of the genre, but because it's the most notorious. And when the discord eventually hits, every headline is going to use this movie as the face of what dark romance truly is. Every "is this genre dangerous for young readers" segment is going to use Zayd Meadows as Exhibit A. The same thing that happened to 50 Shades of Grey is almost certainly going to happen with this movie. When that book got its film adaptation, lots of men came out of the woodworks to try their hand at being a dom. A bunch of men jumping into a community thinking they know exactly what they're doing because they saw it in a movie. The problem with that is the BDSM community has rules. Actual communication and boundaries are necessary for that type of work. There is nothing wrong with BDSM relationships. Everyone is entitled to love how they want to love, but when that movie came out, lots of men thought that that lifestyle was for them and that it was an easy thing to accomplish. This surge actually led to a lot of kink dating sites and apps, as well as a large online presence of people in the BDSM community trying to stress the importance of time, trust, and communication. However, in this day and age, when violence against women is already at an all-time high and a predator is president of the United States, a movie like this that glorifies non-consenting relationships can lead to a similar situation, only worse. Making this into a movie opens it up to a wider audience. A book is harder to get out. Not everyone is going to go out of their way to buy and read a 500-page book. But a movie? It doesn't take a lot of effort. A quick $13 to $20 ticket, and all you have to do is sit and watch. There will be plenty of people who have probably never even heard of the book that are going to end up watching the movie. A movie where a woman repeatedly gets assaulted and ends up enjoying it. Obviously, the theory of it leading to real-life consequences could be considered a bit far-fetched, but with the way things have been, it's not entirely unrealistic to assume that it would. There are already men online asking women to recreate scenes from the book. Again, I'm not here to kink shame anyone. Fantasy isn't endorsement. Adults are allowed to enjoy fiction that would be horrifying in real life, and that does not make them bad people, or bad feminists, or whatever else the internet wants to call it. Haunting Adeline markets itself as a dark romance, but reads as a psychological horror wrapped in toxic obsession, and consent throughout is blurred or almost entirely absent. Dark romance as a genre is not the enemy here. It exists because readers want a safe, fictional space to explore fear, power, and taboo without it happening to them in real life. That is a legitimate genre with real readership. But there's a difference between exploring a dynamic critically and building an entire narrative that insists the audience root for the abuser. And a large number of readers, including the ones who love dark romance, have said that this book crosses the line. A faithful, big-budget movie of the single most notorious book in that genre is not going to settle the argument that dark romance is bad. It's going to become the argument. Every headline about this movie is going to use Haunting Adeline as the face of dark romance, whether the genre likes it or not. Now, to end everything off, I want to mention that there is a change petition to try and stop this movie from being made. It lists pretty much everything I've said as a reason, including something I think is important that I did not touch on very much in this video. They said, quote, "In writing, there is at least some distance. You can close the book, you can read critically. A movie removes that distance. You're watching a woman be terrorized in her own home, and the director wants you to find it romantic. The lighting is warm, the music is intimate, the actor is handsome. Every cinematic choice tells the audience, this is passion, this is love. This is what it looks like when someone wants you badly enough. The impact on women and survivors is not hypothetical. Women who have been stalked, drugged, or assaulted don't get to opt out of this cultural conversation," end quote. And as a victim of sexual assault myself, I know for a fact that this type of thing is not supposed to be taken lightly. I highly encourage you to go sign it, even if it doesn't amount to anything. Enough signatures can bring attention to it, like news sites or production companies that realize this movie might be a little more trouble than it's worth. And I want to also add, please take care of yourself. And if you are a victim of assault or know someone who is, reach out to the proper authorities. I'll leave links in the description as well as this number on screen that you can call. I know firsthand how hard it can be to reach out for help, especially when stuff like this exists that make it seem like your trauma is the greatest fantasy out there. But it's important to speak up for yourself, because if you don't, then there is a chance that no one else will. And if no one speaks up, then nothing changes. I hope you enjoyed the video, even if it did touch on some dark topics. It was kind of all over the place, but this is more just a rant. I found out about this and I got mad and I had to write the script, and I was like, I have to get this video out because I have to get my feelings, I have to get my thoughts out. Men are going to watch this movie and they're going to be like, oh, women want that. Women want that to happen. So I should go do that because this woman likes it. Especially like casting like beautiful women or something, or beautiful men for Zayd. Like, it just adds to the terrible crap that it could like lead to. Art often imitates life, but life can sometimes imitate art. And this is not a piece of art that I would want imitated. Even though this type of stuff does happen realistically. Hope you guys enjoyed. Check out the sources. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.